Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial with UXMate. In this video we are going to get started with how to use Blender, and we'll be exploring the interface of the Blender and how to navigate in the Blender. In our previous video we have get started with it and how to download it from the website and how to install it specifically on Mac OS. You can do it for all other operating systems as well. If you haven't went to the previous video, make sure you watch it if you're using Blender on laptop, because laptop keyboard doesn't have number pad, and mostly you don't have three button mouse, because you'd be mostly using trackpads. So I would recommend go ahead and watch the previous video. We have discussed the basic settings which we have to do to make sure Blender is working fine on the laptops, specifically where you don't have number pads and 3-button mouse. Okay, if you have external keyboard mouse with number pads and a 3-button mouse, definitely you can skip the previous video. But if you don't, I'll recommend go and check it out the previous video. So yes, without any further delay, let's get started with it. Yep. So as we discussed earlier as well, when we launch Blender for first time, we have to do a couple of settings, and once we are done with that, every time whenever we start Blender, we basically see a splash screen. On the splash screen, you can get started with which workspace you want to basically start Blender in. So in general, it basically starts with a 3D workspace, the most common workflow of the Blender. If you want to do it for the 2D animations, you can go ahead with the 2D animation, and similarly, if you're doing sculpting, VFX, or video editing, you can choose the specific workflow. Guys, Blender has very great capabilities of the video editing as well as VFX as well, and as always, it is a free tool which can be used on almost any kind of devices, because it is very lightweight comparatively all other 3D tools. Okay, and if you want to see all the manuals or tutorials on the website, any release notes, you can use rest of the area on the splash screen, where you can download the manual, you can go to the website, you can see the credits, who have developed this, the entire thing about it, and then you can see different release notes about the Blender, the different versions of it. And definitely guys, if you're earning money from it, I would recommend if possible, please donate the fund for the developers of the Blender, because it is a freeware open source tool, and to keep this healthy ecosystem, lots of people develop the funds. Okay, but yep, let's just simply close this, and to close this you can simply click outside of the splash screen, or you can click on general if you're if you have to open any other saved file, you can go from the open as well. Okay, so let's just close this. Well, before we jump into the the environment or the 3D workspace of the Blender, I would recommend go and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon next to it, because if you're not doing that, then you'd be missing a lot of exciting content about designing and multimedia. So yes, before we move on, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Okay, so now I hope you already did that. Okay, so now the windows which you are seeing on the screen, this big window, or these small sections over here, and there's something at the bottom of the screen, so we basically call them editors or panels. Okay, the bigger panel which we are seeing in the middle of this screen, or the application, which is your 3D viewport. Okay, so why do we call it 3D? Because it has 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions as in generally 2D is 2-dimensional thing, which has which has axis x and y axis, which is located only on the plane surface, right? Let's say a drawing on a paper, the paper is basically a 2D thing, because it has only 2 dimensions. You can refer as your graph paper. You can plot only graphs within the 4 quadrants of x and y axis, right? So in the same way, basically you have this x-axis and y-axis here, and now the third dimension, or the third axis is z-axis, which is in the top to bottom direction kind of thing. So where you have 3 different axes. That's why we call it as a 3D animation tool, or 3D tool, because it has 3 dimensions. Okay, as similar to all other computer applications or any other applications, Blender has the menu bar and toolbar on the left hand side. So on the menu bar you can see file, edit, render, window and help menu, and then after that you have layout, then you have modeling. So these are the different layouts basically: modeling layouts, sculpting layout, UV editing, texture and painting, shading, animations, animation, rendering, composite, and so on. So basically these are different workflows, or different basically what you can do is when you go to the modeling, you will be only seeing the tools which are mostly required in the modeling workflow, right? So for example you need to extrude objects multiple times, or you need to add edge loops, you need to delete edge loops. So all those things which you frequently use in the modeling, in the polygon modeling, basically those tools are handy and upfront visible here, rather than in the context menus or in the different menus, right? If you go to the sculpting, basically you can see the tools on the left hand side are basically changed as per the sculpting requirement. So you can see these are the different sculpting brushes, and you can pick any of these brushes and sculpt this model. Okay, and on the same note, if you go to the different layouts up here, you'll be basically seeing the tools which are specifically used in that particular workflow. Okay, now let's go to the go back to the modeling, which is basically default, or you can click on layout, which is default workspace, or default workflow or layout of the application. Okay, you can go ahead and go to the different specific orthographic views as well. So orthographics as in 2-dimensional views, right? And perspective as in where you can see the 3rd dimension as well. So when you click here on X, basically you can see the front axis, like the front view only. When you hit on Y, you can see the left or right view, depending upon where you are. When you hit Z, you can see the top view. And one cool thing about Blender is when you hover your mouse on any of the tools, you can see what it does, and what are the different shortcuts to access this tool. So for example if you want to quickly switch to the top view, basically you can hit this command and 7 key if you are using Mac, right? Or you can simply drag this, and you can change your view from orthographic to perspective. Okay, so why do we need orthographic and perspective? Because when you are modeling, you need to make sure your model is looking as it is taking the shape as expected in all of the dimensions, because we are working in a 3D workspace, we are working in a 3D environment, not on a 2D canvas, right? So in 3D environment, our camera would be kind of revolving around the 360 degrees of the object. So in that case you need to make sure the object or the model which you are creating in Blender, that has to be perfect from all the different dimensions, right? So now to make sure it is kind of looking as expected in all the different dimensions, what you have to do is you need to able to navigate in the 3D workspace or the 3D environment. So how we can do it in the Blender? Basically if you are using a MacBook or a trackpad, you can simply use gestures. You can simply use your 2-finger gestures and rotate around the objects, or rotate around the 3D world in the Blender. But let's say if you don't have a trackpad and you're using with a 3-point mouse, three button mouse, then in that case you can use your middle mouse click, which can be used to rotate in the workspace. And if you are simulating it using the Blender settings, you can hit the command, or sorry, not command, you can hit the option button, and then you can click and rotate in the workspace. This this tool basically option or command, it is kind of configurable in the input sections of the preferences, where you can choose which key you want. But generally by default it comes with the option key or alt key. You can just hold the alt key and click and drag with your left click. It basically rotates around the object. I prefer to go ahead with the gestures only, because it is much easier. You can just simply pinch in, pinch out to zoom in, zoom out, and you can simply use your gestures to move around. And the same gesture can be used to the pan as well, where you hold the shift button. So when you have to do without gestures, basically you have to hold the shift button, and then you have to click and drag in the environment. Okay. And with the command or basically control button, you can scroll in to zoom in, zoom out. Like instead of pinch, you can hold your command button and you can zoom in, zoom out. Okay. In the initial days you would feel okay, it is kind of a bit difficult to work in the 3D environment, but you have to practice a bit to get familiar with the 3D workspace and quickly pan around or navigate around the 3D environment. I would also recommend you to play 3D games or watch 3D animated movies that will help you to develop your sense of the third dimension very quickly and easily, and which can be helpful in 3D modeling or 3D animation career if you are interested in it. Okay. Now we have quickly went through how to navigate in the Blender. Now let's see what else we have in the Blender. Okay, so as of now you can see by default we have a cube in this workspace, right? So it is the object or the primitive which we have in the world. You can simply select it and delete it. Okay. Or you can keep on adding more objects in the environment. So how we can add objects is basically you can see add, and in the mesh you can select which object you want. So we can hit on the cube to add a cube. These menus can be accessed from multiple ways. You can basically hit shift A, which basically opens the add menu. Like rather than clicking here and you can easily hit shift A, it will open your add menu. So there are different ways to open any context menu in Blender or any other 3D tool. So whichever feels easier to you, you can start adopting it. Okay. Now we'll definitely go into each and every menu, and we'll be exploring what are the different options we have under them. But we'll be going step by step, and we'll be understanding as well as start working. We will not first go through each and every menu option and then start exploring what can be done with that. Rather than we'll be just start doing something on the screen, and with that we'll be exploring what are the different options we have, right? So we have so far we have seen the different toolbars which we have here. We will definitely go and talk about these tools in more detail, but as of now just make sure you can navigate in the 3D world, in the 3D environment. Okay, then you can access these tools. These tools are depending upon your layout, those are subject to change. So whichever layout you are in, basically based on your layout, all the tools on the left hand side will be changing. Okay. The next thing is we have talked about those all the windows or all the panels in the Blender, we call them editors. Okay. So now let's quickly see what do we have on this small top right corner. Okay, so this is basically we call it as outliner. Outliner as in it basically outlines your entire scene. So what does a scene means? Scene means whatever we have in this file, in this 3D environment, this is your scene. So whatever we do in this 3D world is basically your one scene, and you can keep on adding multiple scenes, right? And you can create groups of them to easily organize, find and use them, right? So in the same way we call them collections. So collections could be of anything. It could be of light, it could be of objects, it could be of cameras. So basically collection is nothing but the groups or the layers you can relate with. and then you have all the objects which are present in your scene. So you can see there is a camera. Okay, you would have noticed. Okay, this is your camera in the scene. Okay, then you have a light in the scene, right, a point light. So and a cube which we have recently added. So you can see all the objects which we have in the scene are basically outlined here. That's why we called it as outliner. Okay, so you can see we have a camera, cube, light, and it is grouped under a collection. So you can easily toggle the visibility, and you can use them as your render layers and all those different things. Definitely we'll go into each and every aspects in more details, but as of now just make sure you are understanding what different sections are there in the Blender. Okay, just below that we have our entire properties panel kind of thing, where you can change the properties of different things. So by default, when you select any of the object, the basic stuff is about the properties of the selected object, and you can modify all those properties from here, which basically includes location, rotation, and all other details about it, right? In which collection it is, do we have different instances of it, have we created a motion path for it, its visibility, its viewport display, do we want to use it as a line art, and all those different properties of an object can be modified from here. Okay, now if you see there are multiple different buttons here, because those are different menus, or different sections or different tabs you can see in this particular properties panel. By default we are seeing at the object properties, where you can see properties for the selected object. But if you go through all of these, you can explore these yourself as well. You can see this is about your selection tool, right? Then you have scene setup. You can do all the settings, or you can modify all the properties about your scene, about your basically renderer, right? Not scene, about your renderer. These are renderer settings. Then you'd be having output setting, where you can define how do you want to generate output from Blender. Where do you want to store it, what would be resolution, frame rate, aspect ratio of your output file. All those things can be configured here. Then you have view layers, where you can modify the different layers. Then you have, definitely will be going into much details of each and every button here, but I'm just walking you through quickly. So you have scenes properties, where you can modify properties for the scene. Then you have world, where you can basically simulate the real world effects, like fog, or mist. Those kind of things can be modified from here. You can use this to create HDR lighting as well, where you can use a HDRI image to basically create the lighting in your environment, right? By default, also you can create a sun or a natural sun, which basically gives you a sunlight in the Blender, right? Then you have we have talked about this object. It is about all the object properties. Then we have modifiers. It is kind of something, I'm not sure if you already seen it in 3ds Max. Modifiers are basically the sets, or the effects which we can apply on our base geometry and modify that geometry. That's why we call them as modifiers, right? So we can keep on adding the modifiers on our base geometry, and to manage, or to modify the properties, or to edit the properties of the modifiers which we have added, we can use this panel. Then we have practical particles, where you can create the particle systems. For example, you can create fire, you can create rain, you can create dust particles. So everything related to particles, or simulations can be done through these particles thing. So then we have physics, where we can modify the physics when you want to create dynamic effects. For example, cloths, rigid bodies, or all those things, where you have real life physics. For example, you want to animate cars, so you need collision kind of thing, where something is hitting on an object, and that object is destroying. So all those things can be modified under this physics panel. So you can select an object and modify different physics related properties of that particular object. do you want the object to be elastic, do you want it to be rigid, is it metal, is it a stone, is it wood. You can modify the physical properties of the object. Okay, then we have constraints. Constraints are basically when you create riggings, you can add the constraints, and then to modify the properties of those constraints, you can use the constraints panel. Then we have data, where you want to modify basically the different data sets, which can be UV maps, or which can be your normal maps. So everything which we are using any images or any textures or anything to modify the 3D data of the cube can be found here. Okay, then we have materials, which is basically gives your objects colors, textures, and all those things. Those can be modified from the material. And then texture is basically, so there is slight difference between materials and textures. Basically materials are kind of you can take an example. For example, my material is wood. Okay, and then it is kind of a sandalwood, or it is a rosewood, depending upon the material, or you can say stone. Then stone could be a black stone, it could be a marble, it could be a any other stone. So depending upon your material and what kind of texture it has, what kind of colors it has, all those different properties. So basically material is the material of the object. It could be metal, it could be glass, it could be stone, sand, or sponge, any other material, right? And then the texture is basically how it looks, how it feels, the further details, or the actual colors, images which we use are basically textures, right? We'll be definitely going to much details, and we'll be exploring what is material and what are textures on it. But yes, as of now these are the primary important things. And then the most or the only remaining part here is basically the timeline. So when we will be doing animations, I'm not sure when but yeah, whenever you have to do animations, you can use the timelines to modify and manage your keyframes, and based on your keyframes you can create the animations like 3D 2D animations. So everything which is going to be animated, you can use this timeline to manage your keyframes and timings and all those things about the animations. Okay, so I hope guys you got the gist, or the basics of the Blender. So in the next video we'll be taking this further, and we'll be try to create a simple object using simple basic primitives, and you would be exploring the different things as and when we move forward in the series. So yes, I hope guys you are enjoying these videos. Don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon next to it. And till the next video, keep watching, keep learning, keep designing.